It's not at all unusual for a mother to describe the day her child was born as one of the best days of her life. But in my case, it's maybe a little bit less expected because I wasn't planning on actually taking my baby home with me. A few weeks after I had peed on a stick and gotten the 2 lines on the thing that means you're pregnant, I had gone to the adoption agency recommended to me by Planned Parenthood and told them I want to give my baby to gay people. And they had granted my wish. They had introduced me to this outstanding couple from Jackson Heights, 2 guys, an actor and a surgeon, and they wanted my spawn. And we had chosen a name for the baby together. They had come and seen a play of mine. We were planning on an open adoption with multiple visits a year. It was a whole thing. But they were not at the hospital with me the day my son was born. That day, since the baby daddy wasn't really in the picture for me, I had kind of amassed a team of people who all had volunteered to accompany me to the hospital. So when I went to the hospital that morning for supposedly just some tests, and then they informed me they were going to induce me, there were a lot of people to call. And it wasn't really a surprise at this point because I don't know what's the appropriate metaphor? Like a watermelon that's like been slit just a little, so like fruit is starting to come out maybe, or like, or a balloon that like if you put any more air into it, it's gonna explode in your face, like that level of pregnant. So we're not really surprised at this point that they're inducing me. But so we call up Team Mariah, all my friends who volunteered to come to the hospital, and I'm gonna look at my sheets here for a second. Okay, so I could only have 2 people in the room with me at a time. Because it wasn't that big of a room, and there were more than 2 people on Team Mariah. So the other people would stay out in the lobby and just wait and then cycle in and out, and they would take pictures and video in the lobby and send them to me, and I would see them on my phone, and they would take naps, and like people would go and get food and switch out, and people in the room with me would squeeze my hand during contractions and read to me or pass me my phone so I could live tweet my progress, because that was a thing I was doing. And so eventually I reach a point where I decide it's epidural time, no natural childbirth for me, thank you very much. And that means that my friends have to be kicked out. So I am left alone with Vanessa. And Vanessa is probably the greatest person in the world. Vanessa is my nurse, and she calls me mommy all day. She says, I like to make the mommies laugh, and she calls my butt my boom boom, so anytime she needs me to lift my butt, she says like, okay mommy, boom boom up, or goodies, mommy, your goodies are hanging out, and I love her so much. Like, if I were Pope, I would canonize her tomorrow, I'm not even kidding. And so for the epidural technician is sticking pins and needles in my back, and Vanessa stands against my knees so that my legs don't jerk too much with the shock, and squeezes my hand and says, you're doing so good, mommy, and I just breathe and try not to move too much. And the loss of pain is like immediate and it's magical, and so then the epidural tech leaves and Vanessa says, can I ask you a personal question? And I'm like, sure, you know, I'm pretty much an open book. And she says, why are you giving your baby up for adoption? And I know, it's not that I don't know the answer, it's just that in this moment, I don't know how to unpack the logistical and practical and artistic and emotional and love-based and financial factors that have gone into this decision, because I'm too happy about having this baby to be in touch with all that, and so I just say it's complicated. But I explained to her that it's an open adoption and that I'll still get to know my baby, and she says, well, that's good, as long as he knows you and he knows you're a good person, you're just too nice of a person for him not to know you. And I don't remember whether I said anything to that. I remember that then I took a nap, and when I woke up, couple more members of Team Mariah had arrived. One of them had brought me a teddy bear, and there was more shooting the shit. And I remember that the sky outside my window was like Technicolor blue. I was at Roosevelt Hospital, like high up, and so my window was facing the Hudson. And so eventually I noticed that even though I've had an epidural, I'm starting to hurt again, and they realized that I've gone from like 1.5 centimeters to 9 centimeters without breaking a sweat. And so the doctor informs me that it's going to be pushing time soon. And my friend Emily, who accompanied me to the hospital that morning, because at that point I was bringing friends with me everywhere because I was like, I'm going to have a baby sometime soon. She hasn't really seen me all day because other members of Team Mariah have been in the room with me. So she comes up to kind of say goodbye, because she had previously opted not to be in the room when the baby comes out. She was like, I will pass out. I'm not good around gross stuff. But the doctor comes in and says it's time, and she decides to stay. She's like, no, I'm good. I'll be, up here by Mariah's head and nowhere in view of her vagina, but I'm gonna stay. And I pushed for 3 hours. Yeah, and I vomit a couple times from the pain, but I don't even care. I just like go, go, go. Like anytime the doctor tells me to do 3 pushes in a row, I do 4. Anytime I'm taking a break, I'm the one who decides the break is over. I'm just like, get this baby out of me. And by hour 3, the doctor's like, okay, we're gonna put a suction cup on the baby's head and pull while you push. And I'm like, yes, yes, you are. And pretty much instantaneously, like as soon as they decide to do that, it just takes like 2 big pushes and like, baby out. And it looks like an alien covered in chalky green slime. And my doula and Emily are both crying, and Vanessa, who has stayed 2 hours past the end of her shift to meet my child, cuts the cord. And Emily's like, he's perfect. And I haven't met him yet because they're cleaning him up while they sew up my vagina and deliver the placenta and all that lovely stuff I'm sure you all wanted to hear about tonight. And so I'm just in shock. I'm just relieved not to be pushing anymore. And then they stick this thing wrapped in white blankets in my arms, and he's all like clean and beautiful, and he looks up at me with his big dark eyes. And the cliches are true. They are absolutely true. The minute you meet your child, you are just fucked. You are just in love. You are just done for. There's like nothing you can do. And so I spent a lot of the rest of the night seeing if I could get him to breastfeed, and he just kept passing out on my boob. And so I eventually decided to get some sleep too and send my last visitor home. And the next couple days are all joy. Like the day my son was born, there was no sadness. There wasn't even bittersweetness. It was just joy. It was just, I don't know if I've ever felt as surrounded by love as I was that day. And the next day is the same thing. There's a constant stream of visitors. My friend Lauren brings me a card that says, congratulations on making a baby with your genitals. And I get to hang out with my baby and my friends, and I'm generally just really happy. The third day is when shit gets real, because the third day is when my son and I will have to leave the hospital separately. I've opted for a program called Cradle Care, where a volunteer takes care of the baby for up to 30 days after childbirth while the birth mother makes up her mind, and like nothing is signed yet, and she can make the decision when she's in like a stable frame of mind, not, hormonal and immediately postpartum and crazy. So this is the day when the volunteer is going to take my baby home, and I will go home separately. But it still isn't hitting me. Like the first moment when I start to realize just what a big deal this is in the morning when I'm holding him in a rocking chair and I'm looking into his big dark eyes, and I say, are you sad because today we have to say bye-bye? And my heart kind of twinges, and I'm like, oh, this is gonna suck, isn't it? But it's still like, nothing's hitting me yet. And, you know, there's still a lot of visitors that day, and, you know, it's pretty much the same as the day before, but with a little more paperwork since we're leaving the hospital that day. And then the time comes when my social worker says, all right, it's time. My social worker from the adoption agency, who is taking my son to the volunteer who lives in Long Island. And so my friends who are there at the time kind of crowd around my son to say goodbye to him, and my heart starts twinging again. I'm like, guys, can I get a moment? And I kick everybody out. And I wish I could remember exactly what I said to my baby in that moment. I remember saying over and over, I don't want to do this. I remember walking him over to the window and showing him the world outside and saying, you know, it's a big, scary world out there, but I'll always be here for you. And I remember telling him over and over that I loved him. And then I remember just running out of words and just holding him. And eventually my social worker knocks very, very, very gently on the door and pokes her head in and it's like, okay. And she straps him into a car seat that she's brought in, and I look at her and I say, this is really hard. She says, I know. And she leaves with my son. And the top half of my body suddenly remembers that gravity is a thing, and I just kind of fold in half, and I'm sobbing. And my two friends who are with me kind of catch me and help me sit down in bed, where I'm crying harder than I've ever cried in my life. And later I will introduce my son to his new daddies, and it will be a joyous occasion. And later we will have Thanksgiving dinners together, and me and the dads will talk about Carlos Danger, and my son will be baptized, and there is so much joy that awaits us, but I don't know any of that in this moment. But as soon as I can talk again through my tears, I find myself saying, I still think I'm going to do it. Thank you.